But let's move on to our very equally exciting topic of the day, which is changing sales patterns, new ways of realty transactions. So let me introduce our panel members for this session. The moderator of this session is Mr. Rishi Nair, Director Transactions, Head East Cushman and Wakefield India Private Limited. Rishi Nair has an experience of more than 15 years in the commercial real estate market across India, and his expertise lies in planning and execution of retail malls and delivering transactions in Tier 2 and Tier 3 markets of North and East India. His focus is also on land and industrial development and commercial office brokerage in East India, covering the Tier 2 markets. Mr. Rishi Nair, a very warm welcome to you. Let me now invite our expert panel in an alphabetical order. We have with us eminent speaker Apurva Salarpuria, Managing Director, Salarpuria Group. Mr. Salarpuria has been part of the Salarpuria Group since 2005, and he's a qualified chartered accountant. He is the Vice President of CREDAI Bengal and past President of the Entrepreneurs Organization, Kolkata chapter. Mr. Salarpuria, a very warm welcome to you. Our next eminent speaker, I introduce Mr. R.S. Sumant, Managing Director, Eden Realty Group. R.S. Sumant joined Eden Realty Group as its Managing Director in 2013, and under his leadership, the Eden Group has ventured into building sustainable, affordable living homes through Solaris projects, delivered one of its kind refugee rehabilitation project, and which rehabilitated 800 refugee families. And the company has also launched few joint venture projects under the leadership of R.S. Sumant. So Mr. R.S. Sumant, a very warm welcome to this session. Next eminent panelist, I introduce Nakul Himmat Singha, Managing Director, Ideal Group. Mr. Himmat Singha joined the family business in 1998, and over the years has helped the group successfully diversify into different business areas: real estate, logistics, alloy and minerals, trading and equipment rentals, and fitness. He's the executive committee member of CREDAI Bengal and has also been inducted into the Eta Gamma Sigma National Business Honor Society. Let me introduce our next panel member, Mr. Siddharth Pansari, Managing Director, Primark Group. Mr. Pansari, an alumni of Harvard Business School, is a seasoned entrepreneur with career spanning over 15 years. A fervent agent and angel investor, Mr. Pansari guides early stage investments and offers support and mentorship to startups. He's part of several startup forums and was the president of Calcutta Angels in 2016 to 17. Our next eminent panel member is Suhail Saraf, Managing Director, Sugam Homes. Suhail is a master's in science, civil engineering, construction management from the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. He's building upon the company's 33 years legacy with 25 completed projects and is currently developing more than 11 million square feet. Our next and final member for this session is Mr. Yashasvi Shroff, Executive Director, Alco Realty. Yashasvi Shroff, after a 2-year stint at Ernst & Young, joined Alco Realty and represents a strong foundation of ambition, excellence, growth, and consistency in the rapidly evolving and demanding Indian real estate industry. So here we have our panel of eminent speakers. I now hand it over to our moderator to please take over the proceedings.
Thank you, Sapna. Thank you. It was a wonderful introduction for everyone. So I think we should, without wasting any further time on, introductions, as I am, it's a pleasure to be moderating this event with the set of esteemed panelists who actually are the industry veterans and need no further introductions. So, guys, see, today we are going through very challenging times, and the only thing that keeps us going in these times is adapting to the change and newer technology that helps our day-to-day activities and our business needs. So this brings us to our today's topic of discussion: changing sales pattern, new ways of reality transaction. And I would like to start with our first question of the day. So we are increasingly witnessing deployment of technology in various businesses areas within real estate. Can you talk us through technology usage in your companies and what impact it's having on your business? So I would like Mr. Hemant Singh to take up this question for us and lead the discussion.
So when we are talking about digital marketing and the new technologies that have come in place, I think the single largest push to this entire venture has been COVID. I think over the last 1.5 years, everybody has realized the values of digital spaces and different technologies. Earlier, a year and a half ago, it was almost impossible to try and sell an apartment online without having a client visit it. Uh, while everybody had e-brochures, those were basically collaterals that they took home to show their families. But then every transaction used to be face to face. Now, with COVID, it was a very, very intriguing scenario wherein companies had to figure out how to sell these products online. And I think over the last 1 year, a large amount of the clients have understood and are able to get value out of this. Smaller technologies like AI, chatbots, those have also helped in being able to get the communication across over digital channels without having a person in our office continuously coordinating with it in person. I think, and honestly, I do believe that the way it has proceeded in the last 1 year, I think these mediums are there to stay even in post-COVID times. I don't think we will move back to having to speak with each and every client in person every time going forward either.
I totally agree with you and very well said. So this, I think, would take us to our next question. See, the real estate sector is functioning against the backdrop of COVID-19 pandemic. Now there is a resurgence of infection, which you all are aware of. I'm sure your sales and marketing teams are really putting in a lot of effort to secure leads and convert them. So what I and the other people attending this session would want to know from you is, how are your teams going about generating leads? Are there specific AI based assistants? And if yes, how has the experience been and how are the results? I would like Mr. Saraf to if he would help us in answering this for everyone. So
Suhail,
you are
you're
on
muted.
muted.
Yes, I'm audible. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we are seeing that in times of COVID, people are spending more time at home and more time online actually, as people are working from home, etc. And we've seen a huge resurgence of e-commerce. So similarly, we'll have to think from that perspective and shape our businesses so that we use digital tools such as VR, AR products for virtual exploration of our projects. These tools are going to become more and more important, and the developer will have to take their entire marketing online and showcase all their products through virtual tools. Buyers are spending more time online and they're exploring their properties online, and so the marketing experience is completely shifting online. Even for the marketing teams, lead generation is all happening through digital means, and traditional channels such as newspaper advertisements and hoardings are now becoming almost obsolete, and most of the leads that are generated are through online channels. So the sales and marketing team, that what we are doing is most of our sales are happening through online channels, and most of the leads that are generated are happening through digital means.
So I would like to, sorry if I am interrupting. You want to add something to it, Sohail?
No, I think we're good.
So I would like to further take this question to Mr. Salarpuria and would like to understand whether, are there any actual AI technologies have been used in the Sattva group to enhance the, or to support the sales and marketing teams? And are there any results that we can see from them?
Again, like Sohail has covered earlier also, the one thing which has happened is that things have moved online as far as the marketing piece are concerned, disproportionately due to COVID. which means that we, for the first time, have started aggregating data which we can use for AI.
Okay.
Having said that, I think the industry in general, and we are not entirely different, has been slightly lagging in adoption of technology beyond basic digital marketing, etc. So of course the bots are one form of AI which has been used, and we've seen that it's been a successful mode. It gives us one of the lowest costs of lead, as when we look at our entire stack of leads. And beyond that, we are working with a bunch of startups to try and experiment with various forms of AI and various forms of intelligence. Now that we have data for the first time collected over the last 2-3 years, more and more of the marketing happening digitally. But I think it's early days. I think we'll see a lot more deployment of AI in the next few quarters or next few years, and hoping that we'll be able to make better use of AI.
I completely agree with you, because we are yet to develop our own AI, technologies to do the marketing, and we are still relying heavily on the portals that are already existing in the system. That takes me to my third question. These days, a majority of home buyers do their initial research through portals such as Magic Bricks, 99 Acres, Housing.com, Common Floor, Makaan, etc. See, they are at home. They have more time on their hands, and they don't necessarily need to go for a physical site inspection. That is the benefit of these portals. So this was a trend even before COVID. Okay, so this was a trend which we used to see even before COVID. A lot of people sitting with families, or couples sitting together surfing through all Magic Bricks or Common Floor, just to find the right apartment or to find the right property. So so now how are the developers facing competition from online service providers? Do you feel it's more of a partnership rather than competition, given that many developers market their projects on these portals? So this is a question which I would want Mr. Shroff to take it for us.
Thank you for the question, Rishi, and good evening to everyone. Traditionally, we had offline channel partners before the online portals such as 99 Acres, Housing.com came into force. Now, since these online portals have come into force, we are seeing them more as enablers and as online channel partners, which are helping us grow our sales even further. So I don't see them as a threat or as a competition, but instead it's a win-win situation for the developers and the end consumers at large. For developers, they have a common online platform to showcase their products and to showcase it to the clients with all the product descriptions and what solutions they are bringing on the table. And for the customers, it's a one-stop shop where in the challenging pandemic times, it's very difficult for the customers to go to various site locations physically. They can just go online to any of these portals, enter their requirements with respect to their budgets, locations, etc., and get a filtered view regarding what projects suit their requirements. And then they can analyze those on the basis of that, and thereby make a more informed decision. So I do believe that we are more partners in this, and it's a win-win situation for everyone concerned. Furthermore, as Apoorva said in the previous question, that because of these online digital marketing tools, we are also able to gather more data as to what exactly is interesting the market segment, what products are appealing to the customers, and accordingly, we can fine-tune our online marketing strategies to ensure that we are at the right place at the right time with the most effective cost.
So, which leads me to further deliberate on that. So, how much traction is coming from these sites, especially since the outbreak of the pandemic? Is there more demand for specific projects? Do you see affordable or mid segment doing well? What is it that in nutshell, what comes out of these online portals to you as a developer? So I would be happy if you can continue, and would want
Sure.
Mr. Pansari to add to it then.
Sure. So even before the pandemic hit us, we were seeing some sort of traction from these online portals coming into our system, leads pouring into the system. But that has further been accelerated due to the pandemic situation. And there has been increased number of leads now coming, not just from these online portals, but from other social media platforms such as Facebook, YouTube, Google Ads, and all of these platforms as well. There has been an increase in demand in the real estate segment over the last few quarters, as has been visibly seen, because families are spending much more time in their homes. So the value perception of a house has increased, and kids are not going to school anymore; they're attending school online. Most of the workforce is also being shifted to the work from home culture. So all of this has increased the value perception and the requirement of a house. So definitely across all segments, not just affordable, we function from affordable segment to the ultra luxury segment, and we've seen an upswing in the demand in all the three segments of the market.
So, Siddharthji, is
Sure,
it
sure.
the same for
Yeah,
you
it's
as well?
largely the same.
Mhm.
And I think Yashasvi has very well put everything together. The only great thing, that about these online portals is there's no monopoly, So as developers, we are much happy that, that there is a Magic Bricks, there is a 99 acres, there are these online 4-5 portals. Then even on the social media side, there is a Facebook, there is a Google GDN. So, you're now not monopolized. So your cost of lead and overall the cost of generating multiple leads is not on a much higher side. So that's something great. In terms of demand, I personally feel, a lot of times there are short-term needs and the long-term needs. Over the last few years, what we've seen, the short-term needs got more preference from a customer, whether it was a holiday or a car or something, they were more up to buying that. This pandemic, people, because of them staying at home, restricted travel, people did save money. And I think the preference went to more of a long-term goal. Also, the need for space has really increased, because it's actually not only work from home, it is work from home, it is study from home. And, each person in the house needs a separate space for himself, whether it's work from home or study from home. We've not seen any particular demand rise in any particular kind of home. I think there is a buyer at every category today. So whether it was luxury, whether it was semi-luxury, whether it was affordable or middle income housing, we've seen a unified increase of demand across sectors. And I believe it is here to stay. It is not here to go. It is here to stay because there's a change in the thinking of the people in terms of the need for their house.
Totally agree with you. So one thing which I completely agree with your point is this is going to stay, and we need to adapt to the technology and to the changes that are coming to our lives, and the way we have to deal with it. So taking this further, so this brings me to a very important question, that relationship plays a very crucial role, in at least in these critical times. So, what kind of customized services are you providing to take that extra step to provide superior customer experience, which can help your marketing team as well as the buyer to close the transaction smoothly, which is, more of a virtual thing than, a physical uh, help.
Am I supposed to answer this, Rishi?
Yeah, please continue. So,
Sure. So, see, there is one of the trends that we noticed, not only particular now, but over the last couple of years, is one, there is an increased preference or an increase towards once the building, is getting ready, once the basement is done, once you're reaching the plinth, you get more velocity when, people see the superstructure is up. So there is a moving trend more towards completed, or, when buildings are at an advanced stage of construction rather than on day one when you're just launching the project. So that is one change in preference. On your other question is there is limited that we can offer. We can only act as an aggregator in getting them the best home loan deals, trying to enable their PMI benefit subsidy going to them. And largely our focus has always been to, the first and key, we deliver on time. That is where all our energies goes. But to enable them take the right decision is, there's a lot of times when customers not understanding what we are building or the facilities that we are providing, what we are actually doing. So, the AR, the VR, the films and everything. So our job, what we largely trying to do, we take, more the journey of a customer more as a counselor in telling, this is what we are building, this is what we have, and let him decide what works for him, what does not work for him. Our focus is just to deliver on time and clearly explain to the customer what we are offering so that there is no communication gap. Then it is eventually for the customer to see what fits him, what does not fit him. And once he's made up that decision on how we can handhold and make that enabling process, onboarding process better, whether it is home loans, whether it is his first payments, whether it is the agreements, that is we try to do whatever best we can in trying to get that the customer benefits the most.
Great. So, Suman, I would come to you. So, do you think is there anything which you want to add to this, where anything customized for your customers, an experience that you want to provide to them, or you have defined an experience for your customers in for such critical times that they do feel the support and the help that they think they should be getting from a developer when they are investing so much money, either their life savings or whatever. It's a huge amount for first time home buyer or a second time home buyer, so they look for that comfort from the developer. So is there anything that you guys have also come up with as a solution to be provided to these home buyers?
Hi, Rishi. You see, we live in interesting times. If you see that with this pandemic, what we have seen is we have seen people moving towards digital transactions more. If say this pandemic was there 3 or 4 years before, then we might not have had this kind of digital reach or digital penetration in the Indian masses that we could have catered to our customers or we could have helped them with a better customer experience. Today, what we can do is with the adoption of many digital tools, with the increased use of smartphones, there are many ways whereby we can reach our customers effectively. As we discussed about, the others also told about chatbots, AI. There's a lot of automation that's happening. We have WhatsApp integration that's there. So, and now earlier, if somebody had to go through or understand about the project, now what we can do is we can immediately send them our brochures, our videos, our videos through WhatsApp. We can send them location of our site through WhatsApp. So it's very easier, very convenient for them to reach our site. We can arrange pickup and drop facilities there. With digital tools, with penetration increasing in, and with telephony solutions also becoming more accessible, what we can do is we can have our customers, executives working from home. So now we have a bigger span of time. Like if normally say a working hour is say 9 to 6. Now we can have people working from 8 in the morning to say 8 in the evening in multiple shifts. So if there's somebody who would still want to go to a site or would want to visit, they can call in later also. So we have tried to use these technologies and to for the pre-sales period, so that we are able to answer their queries, help them get a better experience during this pandemic, and help them understand the project better. And if you talk about projects, what kind of facilities we provide, we understand that if you especially talk about the affordable and the mid-middle segment flats and housing, one of the major issues is that we like to provide amenities, but when we provide amenities, we know there is a cost attached to that. So we like to ensure that whatever we bring in is all sustainable, and whatever features that we provide, we try and ensure that they are sustainable in nature, and they're easier to use, they're easier to maintain, because for that particular segment, those features, although the maintenance of those features is very crucial. So we have tried to manage such things, and we have tried to bring in the use of the adoption of the digital technology in both the pre-sales and the post-sales part to help them make their decision easier.
Great, thank you so much. So so we've addressed technology, we've addressed how we can provide a better customer experience through this technology. So this takes me to a different question today, which says that post-COVID, we see that trend of smart building technology is gaining pace to ensure workforce health, safety, convenience. Normally, we see those smart HVACs, elevators, lights in office building. Do you feel going ahead, smart building systems will feature in residential buildings as well? Is there higher demand for these features from home buyers? These are two separate questions. So, I would want uh, anyone here, whoever wants to take it. Nakulji, you want to take it? Will be great.
Yeah, sure. Thanks,
Hmm.
Rishi.
Hmm.
So while the smart offices has caught on purely because the MNCs and the larger IT companies have the bandwidth to use it, we
Hmm.
find that the actual penetration of smart technologies within residential spaces has not really come into the Kolkata market as such.
Hmm.
Uh, Everybody assumes that just having a lease line in a complex makes the housing complex smart. I don't think that is what it is truly. The IoT of things of home appliances and all are very nascent in our country yet. We do see some ads of some air conditions which can be run from Amazon Siri or something like that. But I don't think it is moved in that well. I think the only technology that we still have, which is penetrated, is possibly a building maintenance services app, which allows you to possibly ensure that the people who are coming to your house are properly logged in while entering the complex and leaving it, and also for club booking services. But to be able to tell you that I have seen any significant movement vis-a-vis making the houses more intelligent, as of now, it is not so. I hear a lot about it, I read a lot about it, but I don't think we do a lot about it unless there obviously are certain clients who are very passionate about this and do it for themselves.
Hmm.
But as builders, I don't think we are really being able to sell this as a differentiator as of now.
So, if we as builders are not focusing on it and the end users, then definitely this can be a factor which is related to the cost, if I would say, which might
Rishi,
significantly increase the cost.
Rishi, can I
Yeah,
jump in here? Rishi,
yeah.
what we've seen largely, like Nakul mentioned, they're large corporate clients, so they
Hmm.
know what they really want. So a company
Hmm.
like Infosys, if they're taking space, or even a smaller company today, which is taking,
Hmm.
they know what their corporate standards are and what they really want and they don't
I
want.
agree. Yeah.
So I have 3 pointers here. One, though, these individual flat owners, number one, they don't really know what they want and they don't want. So if you end up providing too much, they don't value that benefit, number one, because they might
Hmm.
not be able to use it.
Hmm.
Number two, technology is very fast evolving.
Hmm.
So what you plan today and you propose to give today might not even be relevant after 4 years because it has changed very fast.
Hmm.
Number three, there is no real value creation for anybody today to provide it at a centralized level for 500 flat owners or 700 flat owners, because
Hmm.
it's easily available. Your IoT of things, it's now through your mobile device only. Might be you don't need a separate Alexa or something. So it's much easier done at that flat level where the individual can decide whether he wants to pay 50, spend 50 rupees on it or 100 rupees on it and get it done as per his. Somebody wants a curtain automation, somebody is there. So it really, because the diversity in a complex is so much, until unless you're doing a smaller 25 flat high end apartments or something where you have some same segment or some subset of buyers where the customers are so diverse, and you plan today you spend
Agreed.
150 rupees, and might be you promise that, and you are today answerable under RERA, HERA, multiple acts, where
Hmm.
5 years down the line the technology itself is obsolete, but you have to provide it because you had committed it.
Yeah.
So these are multiple factors going into what you would want to do or don't want to do.
So we can sum it up by saying that these kind of features are more feasible if we talk about an ultra luxury apartment, a single building, which is a premium building with the same set of mindset with the customers, and that can still be incorporated in that. and not in larger complexes, say about 200, 300 flats.
I would say again to limited use, because if you go very, very high end, each customer will have his own level of customization and need. And I
No,
think
they are some
Yashasvi can
very
elaborate
sorry.
better on
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I was
Shortly to explain.
about to reach there. So, Mr. Shroff, see, it's a very basic thing now. HVACs are being upgraded to reduce the energy consumption. So all those things are happening, and these are happening in IT buildings. So one very, especially in these COVID times, what I saw was a touchless elevator, where you don't have to touch the elevator at all or any buttons at all. So it's a smart technology. You just scan the code, you'll have the floor numbers on your mobile, and you just press the button and it will take you to that floor. Do you think something like this can be incorporated in our premium residential projects? Do you think this adds value to it? And is there a demand for it? Are people coming to ask for these kind of amenities?
So I would divide the smarter technology and automations into two parts. One is with regard to the particular unit or the interiors of the flat, where a high level of customization, as some of the other panelists were saying, is there. So it becomes endless for us as developers to standardize
I
them
agree.
and offer them. So that ultimately, when the client brings on their interior designers in consultation with them and based on their requirements, they go ahead with the necessary automations or any smart technologies that they would want to incorporate inside their own apartment. The second part to it is the common building infrastructure, where we can talk about the elevators or chillers. Chillers are not really necessarily used in residential complexes, but the domestic pumps, elevators, and all of these other common building services. So that, I believe, not just in the premium segment, but across all the segments, we are taking some steps to automate those facilities with an objective that ultimately it becomes more convenient for the usage of the common building owners, as well as it leads to recurring cost savings as part of camp charges to the owner. So a small example, all of us have domestic tanks in our buildings, water tanks. We are putting in small water sensors and water meters, which hardly carries any costs on part of the developer side. But those are automated and linked with our domestic pumps in such a manner that pumps are utilized only as and when required, and it's not running throughout 24/7. So that would, of course, reduce the consumption of the pumps, lead to higher shelf life, and of course, reduce the recurring cost as well. But yes, if I talk about the premium segment specifically, there is definitely a demand for automation and smarter building technologies, which the clients are preferring on their own.
Okay. So, very fairly, very well answered. We covered it up from the individual point of view. As a home buyer, how much money does he want to invest for his own home in terms of the technology for his interiors and his automation of his white goods and energy consumption, vis-a-vis a builder investing money in the technology as the building infrastructure, which might not be appreciated by the end user, but it's still gaining some traction with a certain section of home buyers in the premium section and the luxury section. So another question, again, it's more of a technology based thing that has come up. So 3D imaging, virtual walkthrough, drone technology, it's gaining pace in the real estate market. So this is all for a better customer experience and safety. So how are these technologies shaping up in the Calcutta market? If Sumant, if you can help us with that.
We were already seeing many such implementations since the last decade itself. But I would still say that if you look at the Bombay, Delhi market, the other places, then we had more such service providers than what we have in Calcutta. But last few years, we have seen many providers come up, and those providers from here working in those Bombay, Delhi, and other areas where this was more prevalent. So I see here in the Kolkata market also, we have started seeing some new players and some older players who have gained much more experience. In terms of quality, I would say that it is almost at par with the rest of India. But if you talk about creativity, that depends the kind of project that you have. We believe it's a very integral part of project, especially if you look at the under construction projects, because be it this pandemic or not, if you have to sell an under construction project, you are actually selling a dream. You have to make the customer believe or understand what is it that they're going to actually get, because after location, once a customer has zeroed in on a location, the next most important thing to him is his flat and the kind of amenities and the kind of township he is taking his flat in. And there's no better way to make him understand than giving him those artistic images of his flat, the kind of furniture layout he can have, the kind of ambience he will have in the project, what amenities we are bringing in, what will be the standard of the amenities that he will get. So yes, these are actually very essential part of any housing project, especially if, again, it's an under construction project or if it's a large scale project. If it's a standalone building, probably, there are not that many amenities, and you can just have an isometric view and elevation, and you can still be good to go. But the moment you talk about an integrated township or any project which has 2 or more towers where you are bringing in a lot of amenities, you would want to use these technologies. And Kolkata market has improved. I would say not so in the early part of the last decade, but I would say in the later part of the decade, we have had many good players coming in, and we also have national players. So like we still use housing and other guys, people from Delhi. We coordinate with them and we work here. So Kolkata market also has good guys, but we just don't rely on them. We use pan-India players as well.
Okay. So anyone, Mr. Slabria, have you actually created a virtual walkthrough for any of your projects for your customers, wherein you can give them the kind of experience that they will actually be?
So, Rishi, so I'll give a specific example. One of the things which we have tried during the pandemic, in fact, so we've always had walkthroughs which are kind of like videos which play out, which means that a customer has to see exactly what you want to show him and the manner that you want to show him. What we did in the pandemic, we worked with 2 startups out of Bangalore, and we've for one of our projects called Suncrest, we've launched this virtual walkthrough where the customer is able to take control and move through the project on his own. And the interesting part is that we're actually able to integrate this with a Zoom call where the customer and the sales executive can be virtually on site and talk to each other through this on the Zoom call while the customer navigates through the project, and he can move from the site to a particular flat, etc. Of course, at this time there are some limitations. These are early days. We are seeing that sometimes bandwidth is a challenge, so there is a lag in movement, etc. But just as a means of kind of in this period where people have, especially in the first wave when we were seeing lesser people wanted to visit site unless they were ready to buy, we found this to be a very good tool to kind of, while people were not coming to site as much, we saw much higher conversions on site visits because people were visiting virtually more often. So, it enabled them to come to site instead of 3 or 4 times, just that once when they actually were almost finalized. So that is something which we feel going forward will get more and more, the technology will improve and the user experience will get, there'll be multiple layers which will get added to the user experience on that front. And of course, smaller things like, drones, I think, most of us are using in some form or the other. We've used it in a couple of projects to give views at multiple levels. So for example, it's a 30-floor project. and a customer doesn't know what the view on 15th floor is going to be versus the view on the 30th floor. So we basically had a dynamic views on every third floor, so a customer could see what is it that he's paying for when he's choosing to go on a higher floor. So, a bunch of these things, and I think there's a lot of stuff on this which is happening. We are trying to increasingly engage with more and more startups so that we can try and, adopt some of these technologies early on. But I think it's a very exciting space. We'll see a lot of stuff happening.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. And with what you've just told us, I can also conclude with that it is effective. It helps. Technology always helps, and it gives a better clarity to a home buyer or to an office buyer, anyone. Anyone who wants to invest, if he can virtually go through the entire thing before he visits the site, I think it's just about a formality that he once wants to visit and close the deal. So half of the job is already done through technology. So then I can also conclude with this, that this trend would continue post-COVID as well. What is your?
I would absolutely imagine so, Rishi, because people want the, when we were dealing with, when we are dealing with channel partners physically, buyers are constrained about when they will come to their office or when they will come to their residence, and you are dependent on the person coming to you. As we move to digital channels, people could go and scout for properties at their own convenient time. With this, the ability to kind of virtually visit the site at their own convenient time has also gone up. So I definitely do see that this will continue. The extent of it will vary depending on the external circumstances, location of the project, etc.
Okay. So another observation by our research team and various other consulting research teams, that housing demand in India and in Kolkata particularly went up in last couple of quarters. Kolkata even saw a good sales growth last quarter. So a major part of this demand can be attributed to discounts and incentives provided by the developers, and also the cheaper home loans. That's what I feel. But what I would want to know is, what special schemes are on offer in Calcutta or in Kolkata? How long do you think such schemes will continue to attract the buyer? So, Mr. Pansari, if you can just highlight on that.
See, we at our end really do not believe in discounting or really sales promotions as such. So we've really not done any such thing during the pandemic or otherwise. Obviously, during the pandemic, the customer was confused and they were in a lot of anticipation that the prices might come down or it will come down. Does it make sense for them to book or not book? So what we've tried to act as an enabler, thinking what will give him comfort. So we said, we give you a price protection guarantee. In case the prices come down, we will match it, but we don't see the prices coming down. But giving him, we're protecting you in price is what we've done. And we've tried to do enablers in terms of speaking to banks, giving them more business with a selected bank, so that customer gets the home loan benefit, customer gets the PMLI benefit, or trying to head in, okay, you can take your decision now. You get 2-3 months to confirm. If you walk out in 3 months, you won't take a cancellation charge. But we really don't believe in discounting or sales promotion to a large extent, because if the product is good and it is made for a customer and there is a market, it will eventually sell. That's what we've believed in, and that's what we've done.
I agree with you, and what I feel, Calcutta as a market, the pricing for a mid-segment home does not leave a developer to offer too much on the discounting front. So even if we have to discount on a home which is being sold at 4,500 to 5,000 rupees, I don't know what will be,
Absolutely.
what a developer will gain out of it.
If you actually look at the last 3-4 years, the developers have largely absorbed all the cost rise, whether it is sanction cost, whether it is material cost, whether it is labor cost. And I think all of us are really working at wafer thin margins at this moment to really try and, you have to price the product right. Obviously, if you price the product wrong, then somewhere you have to correct it. That's a different issue. But largely, if you price the product right, I don't see much scope for us to do. At least we've not done that. I think there are people who do that, but that's not what we've done.
So, I would take this to, Nakul, there is no discounting per se, but is there any other incentive that has been given to the buyer in terms of luring him to the site or to a project, in terms of any festive offers, in terms of any, multiple flat buyers, anything that has been there in the market, which you feel that Calcutta has been witnessing and has actually made some difference to the home buyer?
So festive offers and offers which are linked to a specific cross group promotion plan that you run has been done by us in the past also. I don't think we started something for COVID per se, but we always have two festive offers, one in the March, April, Paula Baishak time, and one for the Pujas festival sign. And then we give you a benefit because but if you really ask me, we've given free car parkings, or we've given actually small cars, or we've had people get air conditioning free for their apartments. But those are not specifically to drive to discount it to get the deal done. It is to create a little bit more buzz about the group and the multiple projects it has, so that it gets little bit more eyeballs. So it's more eyeball generation and lead generation, rather than trying to discount the price of the project to make it more viable for the client to buy.
I agree.
So that we've been doing, and we've done it during COVID times also. We actually also ran similar projects as Mr. Pansari just mentioned, wherein we gave price protection and also allowed them to cancel once they would be able to come and visit the site in person. So those were trust related benefits and offers we are always happy to give. I don't think if somebody wants to actually get more confidence in the product and need something special for that, we are always accepting to give that and go that extra mile to make him feel happy and comfortable.
So, but then I'll quickly ask you something pertaining to it. So, did it have any kind of effect when you rolled out such marketing campaigns? Did you see a pattern, where customers were attracted to these marketing patterns, or did the company see a sudden surge in the inquiries, or a little bit of extra sales? Any change in the?
Yes. So for sure, when we ran these promotions, obviously there are 2 points to it, right? When we run one of these promotions, we actually end up spending a lot more. So because we spend a lot more, by corollary, we should get more leads. That is one. Two, we obviously are able to promote using all the group's assets and which we are selling, and put it in one basket. So the amount of the cash flow available for the program is a lot larger. When you do a group specific or a pan group promotional offer, a car parking possibly works for a certain price point, doesn't work for some, but we still offer it in that price point, because otherwise then there is no value of a pan group offer, right? We've always found that these big marketing banks have created a lot of buzz. If you get the right jingle, and with radio and digital now, it's a lot easier to have a promotion of the group, whereas people see the ads of their specific projects, which is for which they are the target audience. So those benefits with digital has also come in, right? You can have a plan which is group specific, whereas the person sees it for the target audience project that he actually is a part of. And I think these have always been beneficial to us, and I think they will continue to be so.
Great. So, Suhail, do you think you guys also have some kind of, marketing scheme, or any activity that you focus on to generate that extra demand of home buyers?
Yes, Rishi. So what we've seen actually is what we've been doing. We don't believe in too much discounting. though the trend today in the market is that every buyer coming to the site is expecting some discount because every other developer is running a scheme. So what we do is we actually talk to the buyer. We give them a little bit of flexibility in the payment plans without actually affecting their price. So that helps them a little bit in their cash flows in these uncertain times. A little bit of flexibility in payment or in terms of how the buyer can pay could really push the buyer in making that home buying decision.
So we can fairly conclude that price discounting is not happening in this city. Any which ways, the pricing of the product is not at a place where discounting is viable for any of the developers. But yeah, incentive schemes do run, and they run on festives, non-festives, and different offers, and they do attract a set of population towards the project. So, am I right if I conclude with this? Sohail, Nakulji?
Yes.
Yeah,
I think so. I think so. Yes. I mean, offers do help. So there are a lot of buyers who are on the brink, and when a developer launches an offer, it kind of pushes them off the edge and helps them make that decision that yes, I think this is the best time. So having an offer helps the buyer conclude the transaction.
Great.
I would say that the best thing to actually convince a buyer who's on the edge is to actually announce a price increase.
Yes.
When you announce a price increase, that is the 2 weeks that you sell the most apartments. So I think it's the exact opposite of what you're concluding.
I would personally say
that is true. Yeah. In fact, on a serious note, we use it strategically at every point, to lock in buyers who have already bought, avoiding cancellations, and to also everybody's on the brink to get them to sell. Tactically, I think most of us use these price increases to.
Yes,
absolutely. I agree.
People to jump over the fence.
I completely agree with this fact. I don't know how you guys handle it when it comes to residential, but when you talk about a commercial project or in fact a retail project, which, trust me that this is the game they play. The earlier deals have to be the anchor deals wherein we'll give you the discount, you come in early, sign it on the basis of the plans that we are making, and then we'll start developing it. Once you start developing it, then the plans goes out to the guys with a certain increase in price. Then then 25% is still held back till the time the project is launched to get the maximum price out of it. So they structure the pricing. They do get benefit out of it. So I think that's a good idea. If we can work on it strategically, we can definitely gain out of it. So I'll take another one on this. There is another question with me. So see, the remote working and as it was already earlier mentioned, that work from home, study from home, kids study room, workstations, all these are becoming a necessity in today's time. So do you see these kind of demands in your project, and do you have future plans to develop projects with additional features to drive sales, in terms of these kind of benefits? If Sumant, if you can take up this for us.
Absolutely. See, what was happening was the trend was in last few years, we were looking at reduced flat sizes. So generally a flat size, which would say for a 3-bedroom would be around, say, roughly 1,300 to 1,400 square feet on an average, was coming down to 1,000 and 1,100 square feet. With this pandemic, now it has changed. We have seen that people require larger space. They require more organized space. In our projects, we were already doing 2.5 BHK thing, which is again something that we have gained a lot of traction in last few months. So in the upcoming projects also, we are planning that we have those kind of flats available with us, because we know that today and the kind of habit that we are inculcating probably will have people, even when this pandemic is not there and the situation is normalized, we would still see us, like this session is happening online. We will have many more people working from home, trying to get on those Zoom calls, Skype calls. Students taking classes online, which was something which was not here because the digital penetration was not there. With that coming up, and people going through this phase where they have now learned to use these digital tools, and they require say secluded space or a quiet place in their home where they can carry out these activities. So definitely the requirement for such kind of flats, such kind of housing is definitely there. We have we had these kind of flats already in our house, in our housing projects, and whatever upcoming projects we have, we think this is one of the important things that we should definitely have.
So I would reach out to Mr. Shroff. So do you think any of your upcoming projects where you have already incorporated such things to add to the advantage of the home buyers, or are people approaching you in your newer projects to add these kind of there's some
Yes, Rishi.
Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely there is a demand for these kind of facilities and amenities in the project, whereby we see that the families are spending more time in their own complexes and townships. So the demand for such housing complexes, well-gated housing complexes where such facilities are there, is definitely on the upside. And we are also incorporating some of these in our existing projects, which we're going to deliver soon as well, whereby we are incorporating spaces, co-working spaces in the clubhouse.
Okay.
We are also making mini theaters in the projects because people really can't go to cineplexes. They might want to enjoy a session of movie or say an IPL final in the comfort of their own housing project. At the same time, for a good development of the physical and mental aspect of our children, we are also incorporating huge areas for the development of children's, not just as children's play area, but as many other activity zones as well, whether it be a specialized children's library or study zones. So that is also under works in our project. A lot of people also own pets. Some of the pets are very high energy and demand very high energy sessions during the day. Unfortunately, because of the present times, most of these pet owners, I'm one myself, are not able to take out our dogs to parks or for walks as we used to do earlier. So we are also incorporating pet parks in our project, which will be exclusive just to the pets, and you'll have different sorts of tools there which can be used to actively engage with your pets and ensure that they stay in good health. So yeah.
Wow, that's really thoughtful. We were talking about kids and people like us who are working from home, and you've already reached a stage where you're thinking about pets as well. That's so very thoughtful one, really. So we'll move on to our next one. See, over the past few years, industry participants have been focusing more on use of low cost, adaptable construction technologies such as aluminum formworks, frameworks. What is your experience in this area? Do you see, this working out for everyone? Mr. Pansari, if you can, you know,
Can you just repeat the last part?
yeah, I'm saying that, in the last few years, people have been focusing on low cost, adaptable construction technologies like aluminum frameworks and
Yeah,
everything.
so I'm saying it again, depends on project to project, whether you can, as far as aluminum formwork is concerned, whether you can achieve that many repetitions and, whether it's adaptable. So we obviously try to use the best of technologies. Certain products like aluminum formwork works for one project, might not work for another project. So each project is different and we really can't generalize it. But obviously, with the margins being so tight as that it exists today, we do try to use as much as technology as possible in construction, with the focus to save cost and, more importantly, deliver on time. So aluminum formwork, apart from cost, the biggest advantage is also that you're able to provide a quality and a more consistent finishing and in a much faster time. But that will not work if you can't get that amount of repetitions in the project.
So that takes me to the second part of this. So, do you actually see a tangible move towards these low-cost technologies without compromising the project quality?
See, again, I told you it differs from project to project. Might be a high-end project which sells for 10,000 square feet. You are not able to use it because you don't have
Yeah.
that reputation. So it is not really a significantly lower cost, but the benefit comes in your ability to execute it faster and provide more consistent. In fact, if you look at initially, it is more capex because you buy the formwork and keep it. So it depends project to project. There's no one simple answer to every project you can do this or it's
I
huge
agree.
low cost. It is more in the benefits of scale and repetition that you really benefit out of aluminum formwork per se.
So this is open for to all the panel members. Has anyone actually used these kind of technologies in any of their projects? Nakul, have you?
Yeah. So we've been using it for a decade now. In fact, about 80% of our portfolio is using aluminum formwork.
Okay.
I think we've already completed 4 projects using this technology, and I would tend to say that I agree to everything Siddharth said earlier. The only difference is that one of the reasons why very expensive, large-end projects we can't use formwork is there's a lot of customization that the client expects when he's in the higher end of the space. Whereas when we are looking at the mid-segment, wherein 600 apartments, 900 apartments, with the quality of bricks and the manpower available, it would be impossible to make one also. Formwork is, the only thing that I would say about formwork, which is against it, is the fact that you cannot really customize. But the quality that you get out of a formwork or a full concrete project is equal, if not more superior than a averagely built brick and mortar project. I have not seen any inefficiencies with respect to the product. The quality is better with the HERA and the thickness of the walls being measured to the micrometer, which is almost impossible to enforce in brickwork. This really helps us with that, and it's cleaner, neater, faster. And the points that Siddharth mentioned earlier about it only being viable for large projects is also true. But if you have a project with 2-3 blocks, then you can kind of squeeze this in.
So we can use these low-cost technology, and by using them efficiently and effectively, we can reduce.
I want to object to what you've been saying, because I don't think these are low-cost technologies.
Low-cost technologies. They aren't low-cost.
Okay.
They're an alternative.
I'm happy to
repeat us with time and
learn.
quality. We don't make it cheaper. So I don't think you should keep calling them low-cost technology, because that gives it a bad name. I don't think it is low-cost.
So it's low cost. If I would refer it as low cost, then it tends to become a low cost because it helps you in achieving the timelines that you have set for the project, which in turn decreases the interest on the loan amounts that you have to pay out. It gives an early handover of the project. That's how it helps in the costing part of it and brings the cost low. It's actually not a low cost technology, but yeah, it affects the entire cost of the project. Am I correct now?
Yes,
it's an alternative technology. Yeah.
It's an alternative technology.
Yes.
Alternative technology which can reduce our cost significantly. Good. So again, there is a trend towards greater sustainability and green buildings shaping up in the next few years. So are home buyers more aware of this trend and demand products that fit the bill in terms of, environmental, social, governance? Is it happening?
I think.
Sorry, should I repeat?
Yeah, I think we missed. There was somebody talking.
So, there's been a lot of demand, there's been a lot of talk on green building, sustainability, green buildings and sustainability in the next few years. Are home buyers actually aware of these concepts? Do they ever come up? I would want Mr. Shroff to, address this for us. Do they actually come up with these kind of concepts to you? Are they even aware, these kind of concepts do exist and they can benefit from it, or they don't have any real benefit out of it? So
Rishi, maybe around 4 or 5 years ago, if you would have put this question to me, I would have said no, the awareness was negligible. But over the last 3 or 4 years, the awareness has definitely been there, whereby people realize the value of sustainable homes, of green building homes. In fact, one of our projects is the first platinum rated green building certified project in the affordable housing segment. And so there as well, we see nowadays when consumers or prospective clients are coming to us, they are actually asking us questions regarding, what kind of water treatment plants are we installing, what are we doing with regard to water conservations, waste management, and all of these sustainable green building practices that is incorporated as part of a green building. As furthermore, what we are doing to further increase the awareness levels amongst our consumers is that on site, before the pandemic hit us, we used to organize, physical learning sessions with our consultants on board, whereby we used to explain, actually make a rainwater harvesting model or a STP model or various other, technologies that we are using as part of a green building to educate our end consumers regarding how exactly it will impact them, and at the same time make the building environmental friendly. After the pandemic has hit us, we also continue to organize such virtual sessions for our consumers, and also plan to have a thorough handover affair with them. During the handover, it is very important to explain to them what the building technologies are. Ultimately, we have built them and handed it over to them, but all of it is of no use unless they realize the value of it and they utilize it in the manner that it is supposed to be utilized in. There's no point of me having 3 different segregation waste bins if the consumer does not understand that plastic is supposed to go in some other bin and vegetable waste is supposed to go to some other bin. So while handing over as well, we are making increased efforts to increase this awareness, which will ultimately improve the lifestyle of the consumers, improve the environment of the project, and overall at Alcove, we are committed to being environmental friendly and do as much as we can to give back to the environment. Last year during the lockdown, the first 2 or 3 months when the lockdown 1 happened, it was almost a similar time as of now, and it was very surprising. We could enjoy the open areas in the open air because the entire air was so much pollution free. So we could see how much healing powers there is in the environment, and we should do as much as possible to remain committed to that.
I'm sorry, Rishi, this is the topic where we can, continue to talk about, sales and how it is happening, but we have already overshot time. So I'll take just one question from the audience. The role of channel partners and brokers in the present scenario, so just one sentence from each one of you, how the role of brokers and the channel partners has changed in the present scenario. Ariel, let's start from you.
They are your foot soldiers, and they're a very integral part of your company, your sales. So
okay, whether it is digital marketing, digital sales, but channel partners remain very important to the sales strategy.
Absolutely.
Okay, Suhail, your view.
Yes. So Sapna, we see that in as the value of the flat goes higher, the importance of channel partner increases. So flats above 1 crore, every buyer will have their own channel partner who they rely on to help them make their own decision. Of course, you have digital tools that help you understand the properties, but I think as a developer, channel partners are extremely, extremely important. You can create a team of 15, 20, 25, 30, depending on the volume of work that you have. But if you have a network of 3, 4, 500 channel partners on ground, your sales will just increase exponentially, actually.
Okay. So here says the channel partners network makes a very major contribution to the sales and probably, expanding the network. Siddharth, your one sentence on the role of
I think brokers. They are more important than ever before, and their role is only going to enhance in days to come.
Okay, even if we go digital all over with 3D views.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's rather than only you boasting about your project, you have 5 other people telling the customer, hey, it's a good product. And I think customer looks for that kind of assurance. It's one of the biggest decisions in life. So having a third party validate what you're trying to say really helps.
Okay, the role of channel partners is going to become even more important. What Siddharth says. Nakul, your view on that?
I agree to everything that they just said. I think you can't sell without channel partners, right? How do you get your word across? So you can't stand on the rooftop of the project and sell it. You have to get some people to hear it. So the digital partners or the foot soldiers have to all do the work. Otherwise, how would you ever get your word across? Impossible.
Okay, so you can shout out loud on all the social medias, but still the channel partners are integral to selling procedures in the real estate. Yashasvi, your view on that?
I also agree with all the other panelists, whereby channel partners are a very integral part of our sales team. But over the years, maybe 1 or 2 decades earlier, hardly any developers had their own sales team. Nowadays, we've developed most of the developers are in the process of developing their own sales team. But that should be looked at as a synergizing effect with the channel partners, which ultimately amplifies the sales. So our own sales and marketing team working as a team with the channel partners in our community really helps us in amplifying our sales.
Okay. So more synergies between the channel partners and the developers through their own sales teams. Now, Apurva, has the role of channel partners changed in the present scenario?
Again, great points from everybody else. The way I would put it is that, the role of a channel partner back in the day used to be a discovery agent, somebody who tells you what projects are there. And it's changed, quite a bit from there. Discovery has moved largely online and to digital means. And the role has moved a lot more to an advisor, a confidant, where in fact there is excess information which is available with the home buyer. Is suddenly looking at 20 points across each project, different parameters, and looking at multiple projects at the same time. So moving from a discovery agent to an advisor or confidant, advising the buyer how to select which project to select. I think that's been a big transformation which has come about in the last few years.
Okay, so the biggest transformation now, channel partners are more like advisors and helping buyers to sift through all the information that they collect through online channels. Rishi, what do you have to say after, once you have heard all the views?
I am so glad to hear all this. While I've been deliberating on digital, virtual, AI, technology, Makan, everything sounds very good. But our role, in fact, we as channel partners or consultants or advisors were relevant to the development community, and we will also remain relevant going forward as well. But hand in hand with the technology, with the changing times, everyone will have to adapt to it, and so are we. We will also be, investing more in our own technology features. We'll be coming up with newer technologies. But yes, in the end, it will be a combination of virtual and real that will last and will sustain and will take this journey forward.
Okay, fantastic. So I think the biggest takeaway we are getting from this discussion is while sales strategies are changing more, we are getting digitally, we are getting more tech savvy, digital savvy, but the human element and both the digital and real will work together. The channel partners remain very important and integral to the sales strategies of real estate. Thank you so much, all our speakers who are here and who joined us and shared their views and expertise. Arisuman, thank you so much. Siddharth, thank you so much for being here. Mr. Suhail Saraf, thank you for sharing your views. Apurva, thank you once again, joining here and sharing your valuable views. Mr. Himmat Singh, thank you for being here, being part of this session and sharing your opinion. And Rishi for wonderfully conducting this session. Yashasvi, thank you so much once again to meet you here on this key platform.